Good afternoon and welcome to our next instalment of Inspirational Stories, helping us to talk for Mental Health Awareness Week. And today I have with me Mr. Ben Plummer.
Hello.
So we start with the questions then. Ben, please could you tell us about your mental health journey?
Yeah, of course. So I started to experience symptoms when I was roughly sort of 18, 19. At that age, you don't know what it's really about, and you just kind of think it's normal, and it can be, because it's just me growing up. And you see it on the TV, people have trouble growing up all the time. Then it got more serious as I entered my early 20s. The symptoms got more serious. The bouts of depression got a bit longer. That eventually manifested itself through self-harm, and it started off, once in a blue moon, and then it gradually increased to whenever I could, basically. And it was strange because it was, there were times when I was had weeks or months long reckless periods, and I was happy and I was, life of the party. And then there were times longer times actually, when I was down just for, weeks, months at a time. So it all kind of came to a head. I ended up having to be hospitalized one evening. And then I was kind of fast tracked to the upper echelons of the mental health framework. And I was speaking to a psychiatrist and psychologist and was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which made a lot of sense. And to be honest, the clarity of that is quite helpful, because if you know what you're facing, you can kind of take steps to deal with that.
Yeah.
I then had a trial on some different medications. I'm speaking to a psychologist for just over a year, twice weekly appointments. And I was very, very fortunate in that the help I got was there. It was basically on my doorstep. So I found the right combination of medications. I sort of identified the things that set me off, basically, with my psychologist. And then after 13 months, they kind of said, right, you're sort of ready for outpatient status. And that was when I was sort of 22, 23, when I was discharged. And ever since then, I haven't had any major episodes. I've stuck with the medication regimen. I have internalized everything I was told that helped. And just very, very lucky that I can live a mostly normal life.
Yeah.
And here I
am. So how did it impact on your life around that time?
Hugely, in that when you are when you're out of control, you're just not yourself. So it impacted my friendships, impacted my relationships with my parents, impacted my relationship with money and finance. I completely lost control of that. And I'll never know really what could have happened in those. In that sort of 2-3 year block, where I was up, down, up and down, up and down. So we'll never know, but it's not worth dwelling on. But pretty much every aspect of my life was taken up by dealing with some kind of,
And in terms of its impact on your life now, how does it have an impact on your life now? Now you're well?
Yeah, of course. It always does, and it's always in the back of your mind, because with bipolar disorder, it's not something you're never cured. So it's always there. The medication I'm on, I'll be on for the rest of my life. So if you do ever have, because everyone fluctuates, just not to the extent with an illness like that. So it's always something you think. It could be something silly, like if you've had a really good week, then you think, oh God, is this the start of something? Do I need to speak to someone? Or if you have obviously a down period for any reason, you think, could this be the start of an episode that could sort of derail everything? But in terms of day to day, not really. Again, I'm so lucky and thankful for the help I got, because it, you know, and I'm really lucky for my support system. My parents, fantastic. I've got some incredible friends.
Yeah.
So I feel like I can be really open about it with pretty much everyone in my life, which not everyone has. But in terms of day to day, no. On a day to day basis, I find I can function just fine, and I'm happy and healthy and just lucky.
That's fab. In terms of what has helped you the most, is there could you pick out one thing?
Yeah, actually, I there's something, and this isn't for everyone, but I think the thing that really has helped kind of liberate me and empower me with it is just being relentlessly honest with everyone. It's not always appropriate, and it won't always be the right move, but I find that if someone asks, I mean, I've got visible scars on my arms and my legs, and I find that to come up with, which for years I did come up with excuses, it just doesn't help you, and then you worry. So, you know, these days I think there is a certain, you know, people are much more aware about it than they used to be. Yeah. So I find that it is incredibly empowering to just be able to say to someone, this is what the situation was. Yeah. And then again, you're in control of that particular narrative. If you can find, you know, the strength to do it, if you feel the situation is appropriate, and you can just be honest with someone about, you know, about your history. Everyone's got history. Then I found that to be a real sort of big fork in the road, actually, just being honest.
Yeah. Brilliant. Why do you think so many men struggle to talk about mental health?
Because it's still there's a perception that needing help is a weakness, and men don't do weakness very well. You know, if you're coming at it from a point of you need someone else to do something for you, that's quite hard to admit for a lot of men. And ironically, the opposite is true. You know, it takes an awful lot of courage, an awful lot of strength to say to someone, I'm in trouble, or I need help, or I just need to talk about something. That's not, you know, that takes real courage, and it's not weak at all. It's the opposite. I think that's probably the main driver of it.
Around weakness. And admitting that. And also, you know, there's, you know, kind of how much stigma have you come across, you know, in relation to your, you know, if you have told people about it?
Not a depressing amount, actually. I think, you know, you'll find most people are sort of conversational about the topic these days. You know, people can, you know, people understand, and they understand that it's a real issue, and that they tend to, even if they can't empathize, they do sympathize. But I mean, I've had people make jokes about the scars. I've had dates end abruptly after rolling up my sleeves. And there's no way of proving that those dates didn't end just because of my personality, but you get a kind of feeling for it. And I just, you know, people have, you know, distant colleagues have made jokes about it, and it's made the situation quite awkward because some colleagues know and some colleagues don't. And it just kind of comes with, you know, I don't think you can ever be ashamed of who you are. And if some people don't get that, then they're not really your type of people anyway. Which again comes back to the honesty type of thing. You know, if someone knows about you, if not someone knows about what you've been through, and they then treat you poorly, that says a lot more about them than it does you. And you just have to keep on remembering that. You just have to know that, because without that.
And I suppose kind of when you look at when you talk about whether that people can either be empathetic or sympathetic, even depending on kind of how much they understand. You know, maybe, you know, when you open up, it's, you know, it's not as bad as you thought it would be. You know, there might be some circumstances, but, you know, people genuinely, and more often than not, you know, really want to help people, don't they? You know, it's sometimes it can be what we also build up in our mind as well. I know it's hard because sometimes people don't understand, they don't have an understanding around mental health.
100% that. 100% that. I mean, you need to remember that you'll always tell yourself the worst case scenario in your mind, but more often than not, 9 times out of 10, you'll be surprised by someone. If you think it's going to go poorly, 9 times out of 10, you'll be surprised. That's what I've found.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So, do you have one tip for anyone struggling in the current crisis?
One tip. I think if you're struggling, and this doesn't just go for the current crisis, actually, this goes for at any time. I find that if you try to reconnect with the things that you love, because when you're struggling, it's easy to forget that there are things that sort of fulfill you and give you, even if it's only a slight bit. It can be anything, you know. It's I mean, for me personally, that's mainly guitar playing. I love playing blues guitar. That's my main thing. And it's, you know, whenever you go back to it, you go back to an old song that you haven't played, or you go back to a song that you love and you try and learn it again, and it just makes you, it makes me realize that you know, there are things that can, you know, when everything's getting overwhelming and you're watching the news and you know, it's all just, you know, counts of deaths and things like that. If you can just, you know, remind yourself that there are things out there that make you happy, and just do them, then, you know, that's the first step. That's the first step to realizing that there's more than just one thing. But watch an old film, watch an old stand-up that you like, go back to a series that you haven't seen in 10 years, or you know, go for a walk, have a look at the scenery, just something that you really take enjoyment from. If you can do that, then that's the first step, I'd say.
And I mean, we've talked, you know, you really kind of, you focus a lot on your well-being, don't you? You know, overall, you're very, very self-aware about keeping check on yourself and keeping an eye on yourself and being really self-aware, you know, which I found, you know, really kind of, well, very kind of empowering for you. And also in some ways, you're probably, you know, you're ready to spot the signs on yourself probably more than other people are, because you've been through that already. I
mean, again, you know, I always want to be sort of thankful and lucky for the help I received, because not everyone has that luck. But, you know, I was sort of well trained through CBT with my psychologist to sort of know that, he referred to it as the cycle of life that you're in, and that's, you know, you could quite easily pick up a bad habit, very easily pick up a bad habit that you get stuck in, and it's really, really hard to realize what that's doing to you psychologically. So it is kind of about taking a step back every now and again and looking, you know, you know, do I go to the pub too often, or you know, I'm sort of engaging with this person I don't really like, and it sets me off and it makes me feel bad, or you know, it can be anything. But sort of taking a step back and just kind of assessing how you go about your day-to-day life, and then thinking, you know, what's actually of value to me here in terms of like happiness, and what is of not, what's detrimental. And it certainly won't always be obvious, and it won't always be easy, but if you can target those things and, you know, either nip them in the bud or make that improvement, then overall your cycle of life won't be things that bring you down. It'll be things that bring you up. And yeah, I just think it's important to take stock of where you are and how it's making you feel as regularly as you possibly can, really.
So the theme of Mental Health Awareness Week is kindness, and so how has giving or kindness helped you?
I mean, apart from all the obvious ones like signing up to the NHS initiative and the Red Cross and all that kind of thing, I like to just remind everyone that if they need to talk to someone, then they can talk to me. And you know, when all this started, particularly, but I do say it every mental health day. I put it on all my socials just to say, look, if you are struggling, talk to someone, a colleague, friend, family member, anyone. But if you feel like you've not got anyone, then here's my mobile number. Just call me. And you know, you'd be surprised how many people do. But it's just a case of, you know, I think everyone needs to help each other. You know, everyone needs to do what they can. And as I say, I'm so fortunate to live the life that I do, given the illness I have. And anything I can do to kind of pay that forward for people who have been in similar situations, then does it help me? Yeah, I suppose it does. Because, you know, if I know that I can help someone feel that little bit better, if they can't make them feel better themselves, then that's great.
I mean, we talked when we've talked previously, we've talked about kind of the feeling when you were kind of going through it and kind of training yourself around it being you know, it being temporary. You know, it changes, it's dynamic, it changes, and it's temporary. And I think that you know, we had some, you know, great discussions, didn't we, around that part.
That's I think I mean, if I was going to give a message to anyone, it would be that whoever you're speaking to, or if you're suffering yourself, it's so hard to see light at the end of that tunnel when you're there. That was the absolute hardest thing for me to get over. It was kind of a sort of grim, morbid acceptance that this is just the way it was. And this is the way it always would be. And it's just not true. It's just the biggest nonsense. I mean, at the time, I never ever thought I could live the life that I do. Ever. Until it's starting to get better. So I think that's probably the most important thing from my perspective, for people to know that there is things can always get better, and it might take hard work. And you might not be done falling yet, but it can always get better.
And you've been better, would you say? Was it 8 years, did you tell me?
Yes, 7-8 years. From that. And as I say, without any major episode, any major relapse, you know, obviously ups and downs like everyone, but nothing like the kind of severity that I had when I was like 21. So, you know, and I never ever thought that was possible, but it is.
And I just thought another thing that kind of came across when we've talked previously as well was all around you know, your well-being and how much kind of being active helps you, and you know, and knowing that you kind of need to keep stretching your mind as well in terms of learning new things. So have you been up to anything interesting through this time?
Well, as you know, I'm a big huge proponent of meditation. I've been meditating for probably about 18 months, and it's just the most sort of bizarrely nice improvement in your life. You'll find, even if it's a couple of minutes a day, you find you know, the weirdest things. Like I used to, when we had a commute, I always used to get frustrated on my commute, every single day, annoyed that I couldn't get a seat, or annoyed that someone had bumped into me. And after meditating for a couple of months, that's just gone now. I never get annoyed on my commute, and I never thought that would happen. And I've taken up learning Spanish as well, which is a lot of fun. It's quite hard. I'm not particularly good at that kind of thing, but we've all got a lot of time on our hands. So if I can order a beer in Spain when this is all over, I'll be happy.
Well, there is always that, isn't there? Oh, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I don't think so. I think everyone just needs to, whoever's listening, just be there for each other, talk to each other. If you are suffering, be as honest as you can possibly muster. There is always a route out of whatever you're suffering from, always a route out from whatever you're suffering from. And, you'll be more often than not surprised by the people that are going to be there for you. So.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And thanks so much, because it takes a lot to come on and do something like this. And I really, really appreciate it, Ben. And
no, you're so welcome.
And obviously, it was a great pleasure meeting you earlier this year as well. And
it was a wonderful course.
Part of the reason why I wanted you, I asked you to do this was because, your story really impacted on me and the other delegates as well. And I just really, really wanted to be able, people to be able to see, that they could be like you. All right. Thank you ever so much. All right. Thank you ever so much, Ben.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.